is JavaScript a real programming language, or is it a scheme paid for by the government? Find out in this video. So it turns out JavaScript isn't owned by the government. It's actually not owned by anyone, but it is maintained by ECMA, which is the European Computer Manufacturing Association. So maybe not by our government, but maybe the European government. Nah, it's just maintained, so it's like upgraded by them. So of course JavaScript is one of the most popular programming languages. And if not the most popular one, there's always Java and Python near the top as well. So it's always going to fluctuate between those, at least for now. And the reason behind the title of this video, that is JavaScript a real programming language, it comes from my dad's friend. He's a computer science professor at a college. And when he asked me what language I work with, I said JavaScript. And his bold claim was that JavaScript isn't a real programming language. And that kind of like made me upset. He's like saying, yeah, what you're working on doesn't mean anything because it's not real. I'm not a real programmer. Why don't you learn a real language like Java? That's what he said to me. So I was a little bit upset. And I of course, had to look into why he thought it wasn't a real programming language. And his argument, of course, was that it's a scripting language. You use it only as a script in HTML. So HTML is how websites are made, if you don't know. But it can be used for more things than just scripting as well. So his idea was that a scripting language is not a real language, and it's inferior and less than a real programming language like C or C++ or Java. But in reality, a scripting language is just a language in which code that is written in it requires an interpreter to be run. So normal Java is not a scripting language, while JavaScript is a scripting language. So another popular language you might have heard of, Python, is also a scripting language. Does that also mean that Python is not a programming language? And if you just combined everyone that uses both Python and JavaScript, that's like basically all the programmers in the world. So I guess there's no programmers now. No one uses real programming languages. Back in my day, we just used electrons. We combined the electrons and wires, and that's how we did programming back in the good old days. So when I told the professor that JavaScript wasn't only being used on the front end to make websites, but it's also being used on the back end to make servers as well, because it can be run on the server. He said to learn a real language and write a real language on the server, like Java. Be a cool guy with Java. Come on. So I already know Java, so it's not that I didn't want to learn Java. I already knew it at the time, but JavaScript was just easier at the time to implement serverless technologies. So JavaScript wasn't even made by the same people that made Java. Like Oracle made Java. Sorry, scratch that. Sun Microsystems made Java. And Sun Microsystems was bought out by Oracle, so that's why I said Oracle. My bad. So this professor is not the only person that thinks JavaScript is not a real programming language. And I guess they think this because people who program in JavaScript they're amateurs. They think they're amateurs. So this is not correct, as a lot of things can be done with JavaScript that can be done with any other language. You can write Hello World in JavaScript. It's pretty easy, just like you can write it in C++. So one of the main reasons is that people think JavaScript is just some script you can just glue to HTML. Just stick it in the HTML, and that's all it does. It just manipulates the website to do some weird HTML stuff so that the weird web developers handle. And that's not true. So the reason I'm saying that these older developers are saying this is because back in a long time ago, some X amount of years ago, in web browsers, there was a thing called Ajax. And this was for very old web browsers. And what Ajax did is it basically said that nothing can happen to the web browser unless the server tells it to happen. So like you can't update a website unless the server says that it can be updated. And after this, JavaScript was used to update like stuff locally when the server wasn't giving it data. So basically what this made happen is that you can now browse a website without sending a million requests or to the server to see what I can do. Now you can do some stuff locally, and of course that puts more weight on your local machine, but local machines are getting better and better every day, so that doesn't really matter. So this made people claim that JavaScript isn't a real programming language because it doesn't interact with your local machine and it only works on the browser. And I can tell you that is untrue, because you can use JavaScript just on your computer locally or on a server out in serverland, wherever serverland is. Northern Virginia, that's where Amazon servers are anyways. So yeah, you can run JavaScript locally on your computer with Node.js. And there you go. JavaScript's a language. End of story. It just kind of like irked me that just because people think that JavaScript is poorly designed and not efficient, that doesn't make it a real language. It is a real language. You can write any program or pretty much any program in JavaScript that you can write in C++. And yeah, so they might have different purposes, but they're still, and one might be faster than another in some use cases. But you can't have C++ be in your browser, or I guess you could, but it'll be a little bit of a challenge. So also, JavaScript has probably some of the most amount of libraries and frameworks, that more than a lot of languages, because it's so heavily used. So it's lightweight, it's efficient, can be run on most operating systems and platforms. I don't know what else to say at this point. It's a language. It's a real programming language. I swear it's real. So if JavaScript doesn't suit your needs, at least respect that it exists and that serves many people's needs. Anyone that uses a website as a programming language, well, I guess most people that use websites. So for both client-side and server-side rendering, that's my story. Thanks for watching this video.